Let's check this out. Testing 1. Okay, right. So yeah, guys, I think we had some issues with the previous link. Okay, let's see how this works. So, like I said to you, we're busy in module 1.2. We're looking through everything over there. We were talking about application software versus system software. And we see there that application software is a group of programs that perform a specific task. Okay. That task is for us as users. Now, when we look at system software, we see there's a slight difference. The system software is intended to control or support, control, support, or operate the computer. So there's immediately a big difference between the two, okay, between our system software and our application software. So you need to know the difference between those two. I just want to go to it again. We need to know the difference between the two and also know an example of them, right? Then within system software, we've got our operating system. Our operating system is that piece of software, or it's a program, which controls all the activities that take place inside the computer. And examples are things like, anything from Windows 8, Windows 10 to the operating systems that we find on our phones as well. So, giving an example of any one of those would be acceptable. Okay. All right. So I think we're fine there. Okay, let's continue. We did speak about our operating system functions. So some of the things that the operating system does, things like managing all the hardware and software on the computer. It maintains the security. It provides a user interface. So the operating system is what gives us, and here we see it, what gives us things like our desktop, the icons, our menus, our shortcut keys. All of those things are provided uh, to us to be able to interact with a computer in a much easier way. And that is all the responsibility of old Mr. GUI over there, right? Our graphical user interface. And then, like I said, with the operating system, it has what's called utilities built into it. So Microsoft does not assume that when you buy a laptop and it has Windows on it, it doesn't assume that you've bought all the relevant software and you can just start working. So what it does, it has a group. Um, all the live chats save? Yes, it will save. There you can see it pop up on the screen as well. So yes, it will save. Um, so these utilities are just small programs inside of Windows that helps you to do more in the environment. So there we have, for example, our snipping tool. We have our calculator there as well. Okay, just as examples of the utilities. With our application software, remember we said it's a group of programs. So here's a typical example: your Microsoft Office suite. So your Office suite comprises or consists of Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and Access, which is our word processor, our spreadsheet software, our database software, and our presentation software. So all of that is built into what we call the Office suite. So please, if they ask you, what is the Office suite? What does it do? Well, you're going to say it's a group of programs that helps us perform specific tasks. For example, um, creating documents with a word processor, creating spreadsheets with our spreadsheet software, etc. Okay. Then they give us some more. We've got communication software. So you can see when it comes to application software, we can pop in any number of examples as long as they fall under the fact that it performs a specific task. Okay. I think that's the key that you want to take away over there. Then, very important, these two over here, web browsers and plugins. Well, what are they? Well, your web browser is a piece of software that helps you to navigate through the internet. Look, you don't just open the internet. What do? You end up opening a web browser like Internet Explorer, like Google Chrome, and that allows you to navigate through the internet. Your plugin is also a piece of software, and it performs a specific task. Well, what task does it perform? Well, it performs the task of adding a feature to your browser to allow it to do more. So let's say, for example, you use your Google Chrome browser, you go to a particular site and you can't open a file, or maybe a video doesn't play because it needs some sort of a plugin. Then they'd give you the option to do that. And it's a piece of software, like I said, small piece of software that'll be added or installed into your browser, and it allows it to now open that particular file. Okay. So it actually adds to the features of what your browser can do. Okay. So that was all for module 1.2. Those are the main things you want to end up looking at. Module 1.3, we move on to hardware. So the first thing they end up talking about here is our information processing cycle. And we all know this information processing cycle. It is our input, processing, output. And then we'll see at the bottom, well, we've got storage over here and we've got communications, as if it's sort of, separate. Okay. And there is a reason for that. I just want to see if I can make this bigger. Okay. Hope that's still fine and everything is still clear. Okay. So with our information processing cycle, we can see over here, we have input. Okay. And I usually tell people, listen, because this is 1, 2, 3, it's 5 steps. You're talking about sort of almost 15 marks worth of questions that can be asked from just understanding this. Now, when you think of doing an assignment, what do? You need to go and find information, right? So you're going to do input. You're going to type in, whatever you're looking for online. You're going to be researching things. So you're going to be giving, and this is where input comes in, you're going to be giving the computer instructions on what to do. Okay, you type it in a website, you type it in data into a document, you're giving the PC instructions. So number one, what is input? It's when we give the PC instructions. An example of that would be what? A keyboard or a mouse. It could be even a microphone that I'm using, right? So those are the things over there. From there, when I begin to work on that data, when I begin to format that document and make it look nice and all those things, I'm busy with processing. When I'm copying and pasting information into that document, I'm busy with processing. So that's what processing does. And an example would be your CPU. An example would be your RAM. Okay, those are all things that fall within processing. Then we go to output. So output is where the computer is giving us feedback of the results of this processing. So as I'm typing this, where am I going to see it, guys? I'm going to see it on my screen. And that picture is coming out to me through the monitor, right? So that is my output. I can decide, to save that. It's coming out to me. I could be listening to music. Maybe I'm doing some video editing and I want to listen to that, and the sound and the visual is coming out to me. So this is why we have input, processing, and output as our main 3 over here. The next would be, once I've done all that, hopefully I'm going to be saving it. And I would really trust that you guys are saving, things that you work on. Here you can see it's then with storage. So what is storage? Storage is where we keep a permanent record of our work. Now, remember, when we talk about computers and we talk about a permanent record, all we mean is that when we switch the PC off and when we switch the PC back on, the files will still be in place. They won't have, disappeared or gone anywhere. Okay, unless you've got a virus. But we hope you don't have that. So this is what storage does. So that's what storage is. An example would be a USB flash drive. An example would be a hard drive. An example would be an external hard drive or a CD, anything like that. That's what storage is going to be. And then once we've done all that, let's say I have typed out my assignment, I have, done some processing, made it look beautiful. I have checked it out on the screen. I've saved it. I've printed out a copy. I can then decide to communicate that with someone else. So, yeah, they tell us under communications, computers link to others that can communicate. Communication can provide input and output for the computer. So when I decide I want to take that file and I want to email it to my teacher, well, that's where communications come in. Okay. So when they ask you for the information processing cycle, it really doesn't matter what order you put it in. Okay, it really doesn't matter what order you put it in. But if they do ask you for to put it in order, it's only the first three steps: input, processing, and output, that will need to be in that order. The other two you can just leave as is. You can put it in any order. Okay. Then they mentioned to us about, they go into some more detail on input, data and instructions. Instructions can be a program. So it can come in the form of a program. It can come in the form of commands given by the user, or it can be user responses. So, like when you type out a document, you haven't saved it, you want to close it, and a dialog box pops up and asks, "Do you want to save the program? Or do you want to save the file?" And then you will click, "Yes, I want to." So that's an instruction you are giving, guys. Anything where you are telling the PC what to do, that is an instruction. Okay, right. Okay, then we go through the keyboard. They mention, obviously the keyboard is the most commonly used input device. What is important here is just to know these useful shortcuts. So F1 is for help, escape to cancel out choices. We've got our Windows key and the letter E. We've then also got the Windows key and the letter D. All right, so we've got a question here. What is the difference between CAT and IT? Well, CAT deals with the computer environment as a whole, everything from like Windows to Office, the general computing environment, how it plays a role in our daily lives. Whereas IT focuses more on the programming side of things. So there you will specifically go into, I think one or two different coding methods, and that becomes the focus of IT as opposed to CAT. Okay. Right. Here they mentioned about the mouse. I think most of us are fine with the mouse. For grade 10s, this might still be important, but I think for the finals, I don't think it's really going to play a huge role there. Okay. So here's something that's nice and important. We've got our different ports and connecting devices on our motherboard. So here's an example of our motherboard. We've then got two old connectors for our mouse and our keyboard. We've got a couple of other ports here as well. Massive sound card over here. This one's got like 4 USB ports, things like that. So they just mentioning to us here, we've got ports. And what are they? They are sockets used to connect peripherals to the computer. And then we've got very, very important term for everyone from grade 10 all the way to grade 12, plug and play. Now, just to give you a little background on this, in the past, and I'm talking like probably 20, 30 years back, when you needed to connect a printer to your computer, what you would have to do is actually give the computer instructions to tell it that there's a printer connected to it. And in fact, this was a typical example, your serial ports. And you would have to tell it that there's a printer connected to it. You would have to tell it what printer it actually is. And then you would have to tell it how to work with it. So there's a lot of instructions that you would have to throw in. Plug and play came along, and this is now a built-in feature where the operating system automatically detects and configures the device plugged into the PC. I'm sure many of you have seen when you plug in a flash drive, it comes up with a box that says, do you want to scan this? That's plug and play picking up that this device that has been plugged in is actually a USB flash drive. It's something we take for granted, definitely. But it is a very, very important feature within Windows as well. Okay. So let me just see here quickly. Just want to see, we have one or two questions. Okay. So we've got a question here. What is the difference between a LAN and a WAN? Okay. So a LAN is a local area network. That is a network that is in one specific area. So, for example, your school. Okay. Your school would be one particular um, area, and you'd have a network. Let's say the network might be 2 or 3 computing labs, but it's a network just in that specific area. If it goes out of that area and the network expands like between your school and another school and another school, then it becomes a wide area network. So a wide area network is where you have a network over many geographical areas. Okay, so a LAN network in one geographical area, whereas a WAN is a network over that spans over many geographical areas. Okay, then we've got another one here as well. What is file syncing? Okay, so when we synchronize files, and I'm going to use an example like Dropbox. Okay, so Dropbox allows us to use files and create files and store files within Dropbox on many different devices. So let's say we've got Dropbox on our PC, we've got Dropbox on our phone and on our tablet. So I'm at school, I work on Dropbox on a particular file, and I make changes to that file. What happens then is that when I open Dropbox on my phone, it connects to the internet, and it then checks between all the areas where Dropbox is, and it makes sure that the files that are there are the same, so that all the changes that were made at school will synchronize and match up to what I have on my phone. So when I open that document on my phone, it's got all the changes that has been made at school as well. Okay, so when we think of that, just think of it as a method of keeping files that are stored in several different locations up to date. Okay, right. Let's continue. Okay, then we talk about our wireless keyboard and mouse. So, questions around this come up very, very often, right? Especially the advantages and disadvantages of your wireless mouse and keyboard. So, first thing we want to know is, well, what does it do? How does it work? Well, it works using short range radio waves, usually via Bluetooth, to communicate with a computer. Now, we know that immediately when we hear Bluetooth, what is it saying to us? It's short range. We know Bluetooth doesn't, it's not like 50 meters in length that you can Bluetooth, but it's about 10 meters, somewhere around there. Um, and some of the advantages: number one, no cables. Guys, it's wireless, so it's not going to have cables. Okay. So that's the first thing. Second is that we have a wider range of movement because I can move my keyboard and my mouse around. However, it does run on batteries. It is slightly, and I mean like very slightly, more expensive. It can easily be removed or stolen because I mean you can just take it off the desk and walk with it. The only problem is you need to take, and it's not like I'm giving advice, please. Okay, you need to also have the little device, the USB device that plugs into a USB port on your PC, because a wireless device doesn't just sit down there and work. You need a receiver. That receiver is going to be plugged via USB into the PC. Okay, so just don't forget that. Okay, so with the disadvantages, you only need to know around about two. So know two advantages, two disadvantages, and you should be fine. Right. What the computer produces as a result of its processing, that is our output. And then we can see output like our screen, speaker, and printer. Okay. With our monitors, very important. Again, things that run all the way through all the grades. Our output for our monitors, they usually ask things about the size of the monitor. Just remember that a monitor size is measured diagonally in inches, in other words, from one corner to the opposing corner. And our resolution, that term always gets asked. It's the number of pixels used to form the screen image. So the higher the number of pixels, the better the image quality is going to be. All right, then we also have our graphics cards. Now, what do our graphics cards do? Huh? Whoa, sorry. What do our graphics cards do? These graphics cards are what actually generate the images that we see on our monitors or on our screens. So most PCs just have, built-in standard graphics cards. But when you move to more specialized equipment like gaming laptops or, a gaming PC or things like that, or when you do, any video editing, you will need a separate high-end graphics card that does what? It provides much better graphics for intensive tasks like they mentioned in like video editing and games. Okay. Then we also have our response time. Remember, this is now all still on monitors. Our response time, this is the time it takes to change a pixel from one color to another. So when an image is like, let's say in red, the guy's got a red t-shirt. Okay. Why is the mic? Okay. Do we have sound again? Just let me know. Okay. So with our printers for grade 10 and 11, guys, you will need to know how the printer works. You will need to know that your inkjet printer sprays microscopic dots of ink onto the page. You will need to know that. For the laser printer, you will need to know that it uses toner and it uses a laser inside to burn the image onto a page. For grade 11, it gets a little more intense because you have scenarios around it. And grade 12, they've moved now on to just wanting you to know the difference between an inkjet and a laser, and then they throw in 3D printing as well. The big thing you need to know about these are the following. Number one, your inkjet is cheap to buy, but long term, it's going to cost you more. Okay? So cheap to buy, expensive to maintain. Your laser printer, expensive to buy, but it's cheaper to maintain in the long run. And one of the biggest clues as to whether you should be using an inkjet or laser printer is the following. Well, how many pages is the person going to be printing um, each month? Okay, usually they'll give you a scenario and they'll say, John wants to, well, let's use Nathan. Nathan wants to set up a home office, and Nathan's going to be printing around about 400 to 500 pages per month. Now, if that's the case, then it's going to be more cost effective long term for Nathan to use a laser printer as opposed to an inkjet printer. Okay, so those are usually the biggest things that they or the most important things that they end up asking us. All right. Continue with our printers. We know our printers connect usually via USB. So that's the most common port that they end up using. Then they go into a little more detail on this as well, because they might give you a picture that looks like this and ask you, well, why does this printer have this green button over here? And that is because of these three devices that the person has installed, whichever one has this little icon, it means that that's the default printer, which means that when I click print, this is where the document is going to go to in order to be printed. Okay. So if the green little icon, little button over there is over the Microsoft Print to PDF, when I click print, that's where it's going to go to, because that's the default printer. Okay, then we have printer queues. Now, printer queues are pretty important. They usually give you at times like a little picture exactly as you see here, and then ask you what you can do in a printer queue. So first I'll usually ask like, what is a printer queue? Now, bear in mind, every printer has memory. So when I click print, my document goes into the memory of the printer, and it sits there until it's ready to print. So you can imagine if I'm sending through 5 or 6 documents, what's going to happen is it's going to sit in the printer in the order in which it came through. So here you can see there's the first one over there, there's the second one. But once it's in the printer queue, I have a number of options. I can pause a document from printing, which obviously is going to stop everything else. I can cancel a document. I can restart something printing there. So know what the printer queue is, and then also know some of the options that you can use inside your printer queue. Okay, let's move on. All right, then we have storage. So storage has a much larger capacity than memory. We know there's a big difference, guys, between storage and memory. Memory is where it's a temporary storage area for the instructions, when programs are loaded, etc. So those instructions are stored there. Our storage is a permanent storage area where we keep our folders, our data, etc. So they mentioned to us here storage has a much larger capacity than memory because it has to keep all our data and programs. I don't know how many of us use CDs. Yeah, pretty outdated. But I know some folks still use CDs, some still write to DVD. I know even when we have to write our matric exams, we've got to write all the data to disks. Okay. So what's important here are the following. The device itself, our DVD writer or our CD writer, that is a storage device. The disk that the data is going to be written to, that is our medium of storage. Okay. So, Nathan, yes, storage is permanent. And again, remember what we mean by storage being permanent on a PC is when we switch the PC off and back on, the files are still there. When we switch the PC off, remember everything within RAM, within memory, it's wiped clean. Okay. Yeah, there's like 3 Nathans here tonight. Okay. Nathan, yes, the video will be available once the stream ends. It will be available on the channel. You're more than welcome to go and check it out there. Okay, like I said, guys, I'm going to be streaming each and every evening from now all the way through till Thursday, covering the whole grade 10 and 11 syllabus. Hopefully, I can go into grade 12, but at least 10s and 11s. Okay, then we've got our storage capacities. Right, most of us should know this by now, that we work from kilobits all the way up, and it's always 1024. So it's 1024 bytes to make up a kilobit, 1024 kilobits to make up 1 megabyte, etc. I don't think they really ask much of this, especially when it comes to the end of the year, but this is revision. Right, then with storage, we continue our hard drives. Now, this is very important. With our hard drives, you can see we have 2 different hard drives over here. And I'm going to start with a more common one. We have our external hard drive over here. And you can see this is a Western Digital. I see the WD there. This is a small external hard drive that plugs in via USB. It gets its power via USB as well. So I can plug it into my laptop, my TV, put my movies on there, all those type of things. Up here is the inside of a traditional hard drive. So when we talk about the normal hard drive, we're talking about this picture over here. This is inside a hard drive. So this is why sometimes when you switch on a PC, you hear this sort of sound. That many times is from the hard drive itself, because these disks are continuously spinning inside that hard drive. And this arm is what actually reads the data off these disks. So when you are saving things to your hard drive, creating new folders, this is the arm that's actually writing that onto the actual hard drive. So yeah, they tell us with our hard drive, stores all our programs and data, and the size is measured in gigabits or terabyte. Okay, size here measured exactly the same way, does the same thing, but this one is just external and it's connected via USB. Okay. Yeah, then we have our flash drives. Okay, let me just hit this question quickly while we are here. What is the purpose of an ISP? Okay, so first things first, what is an ISP? An ISP is an internet service provider. So Access DSL, MWeb, NetWide, any of these companies, what do? They have a permanent connection to the internet, and they provide the service of you connecting to that and getting your share of it. So, for example, let's say MWeb might have 1,000 gigs of internet line, and you go and you rent a 10 megabyte line from them. So, what is their purpose? They provide users with a permanent connection to the internet. That can be Wi-Fi, it can be ADSL, fiber, whatever the case is. Okay. So there we have our flash drives. I think most of us are very familiar with the flash drive, so we should be okay with that. This is another important one: our health and environmental concerns, okay, or issues. And they often talk about RSI, our repetitive strain injury. And they talk about using ergonomically designed keyboards that can help prevent RSI. So, what is ergonomics? And this is a term that's going to stick with you all the way through to grade 12. Ergonomics is the study and design of the workplace and equipment used in the workplace for the comfort and safety of people in their work environments. I actually want to see if my camera is up and running. Okay. So let me make an illustration like this. Let me just move this here. So let's say you are sitting at a desk and you've got a keyboard in front of you, and you are sitting sort of upright like this, and you have your hands like this, and you are typing. Imagine typing like that for 3 to 4 hours, or you are working like that in an environment for hours at an end, because you're doing the same thing in the same position. You're not sitting in a very relaxed position. What's going to happen? You're going to start picking up injuries, right? And that's where repetitive strain injury comes in. This is why you'll find secretaries, people who do a lot of computer work, a lot of typing, they usually have a very comfortable chair. Think of the gamers out there. They don't just sit on any chair. They have a very nice keyboard, mouse. They have a specific type of chair, because they're going to be doing a particular task like gaming for hours and hours at an end. And they can pick up injuries as a result. Right. So, some health tips for using computers. Well, you want to use, like they said, ergonomically designed equipment. You can see how this keyboard is curved so that it better suits a relaxed position in which I can work. Right. So I can use ergonomically designed keyboards. I can sit correctly. In fact, if I look at, hope you can see this mouse over here. Let me just take that away. If you look at this mouse over here, let me just move it out of my face. Okay, you can see how it's actually got these grooves in it. Okay, now it has those grooves because that is more ergonomically designed. My fingers can fit better onto that mouse. Okay, so I can sit correctly, adjust the height of my seat. The lighting that I've got must be adequate. It mustn't be too bright and damage my eyes and things like that. I must have adequate ventilation, right? And your mouse and keyboard must be in easy reach. You don't want to be sitting back like this and your mouse and keyboard is like somewhere there. No, guys, we don't want to be working like that. Right? You want your monitor at the correct level and distance from your eyes. So you want it to be, sort of in line with you. Some people prefer it, slightly above, but each one is, up to them. And then turn your eyes away from the monitor every now and then. Okay, so you'll see a little glare on my lenses on my glasses here, and this is because I've got like a blue filter on them, specifically for the glare that comes from the computer screen. The only problem is you can see it sometimes picks up the color in the background here on the glasses, but yeah, that's fine. And then you also want to take regular breaks. Okay, this is why you have guys, even the ones who are streaming, they'll stream for a while, they'll have a break, and then they'll come back and do the same thing again. Okay, it's important that one does that. Continue with that. Green computing, very important, because again, this is stuff they ask you all the way through to grade 12. And they mentioned there, basically, guys, green computing deals with using your computing equipment and environment in a way that is not harmful to the environment. So they tell us, if you're not using the computer, switch it off. Avoid wasting paper. You want to print on both sides of the sheet. You want to try and repair your equipment instead of just chucking it away. You want to refill cartridges, refill toner as well. instead of just throwing it away. And then also, when your equipment has reached its end of life, you want to send it for recycling instead of just chucking it into the bin. Okay, so those are the things that help us in dealing with green computing. Okay, right, module 1.4. Let me see, where are we? Okay, we'll probably just touch on this one and then we'll move on to tomorrow evening. So 1.4 deals with computer work that is saved in files. We know this. I think this is a very short module actually, because it deals with file management. Most of us by now, at the end of grade 10, we know how to deal with files. So I'm not going to worry too much about that. These are things they're not really going to ask you in your end of year exam. They just mentioned about the need to organize. Okay, that should be fine, guys. This is what is important here. So when we look at our files, each file has a particular icon, like you can see in the examples here, and it has a particular extension. So the question now is, what is an extension? Well, that file extension tells me which program the file is actually going to open with. So if we look at birthdaylist.docs, what is it telling me? Birthday list is telling me the name that I've saved this particular document as, the name that's been given by a user. And you can see it may consist of all the alphabetical characters and some special characters, the digits 0 to 9 and spaces. Okay. Then the extension is a 3 or 4 letter code that identifies the file type. So when I click on birthdaylist.docs as a file, it looks at that extension, sees, this is Microsoft Word 2019, finds the program, tells the program, hello, you need to open this, comes back and then opens that particular file. So the extension will tell it which program to use to actually open it. Right? There they tell us, do not change manually the file extension of an existing file. Why? Because it's going to go look for that program. So if you change it from .docs to .pdf, which is Adobe Acrobat, it's going to go and look for Adobe, tell Adobe you need to open this, and when Adobe tries to open it, it's not going to work. Okay? So yeah, you can actually cause more problems. Here's a typical example. You want to open the file, and Windows says, listen, I don't even know how to open this file because it doesn't recognize the extension. So you could see the list of suggested programs, which it will bring up for you. You could search the internet for a suitable program, or you can change or set the default program as well if you know which program is supposed to open that file. You can also right click on the file and use the open with command. Okay. Then file paths are important because often what they'll do is in your practicals, they will ask you to insert the file path. So what the file path tells you, and here's a typical example, D Documents Invoices 2017, is that the file is located on the D drive in the Documents folder on the D drive. Then inside the Documents folder, it's in the Invoices folder, and it's in the 2017 folder inside the Invoices folder. So that's the entire path to get to that particular file. And then they just mentioned some common file types and extensions. This is in your textbook. So please do go through that because it is very common that they ask you about those particular files, all right, or extensions. Okay, so they just mentioned what you can do with the file. You can copy, delete, rename, and sort. We know that. We know the recycle bin by now, that if we delete, everything goes into the recycle bin. If you have emptied the recycle bin, well, you're not going to be able to recover things unless you take it to someone, who specifically does that on a hard drive. That's going to be more, specialized data recovery. Then they mention as well different things like icons and shortcuts. So they tell us here your shortcut has that little arrow on it, okay, that you can see over there. If you delete a shortcut, please, you are not deleting the program. You are simply deleting the shortcut that will take you to the program. Okay, sometimes people think that when you delete the shortcut, you're actually deleting the program. But guys, that's not the case. Okay, these are shortcut keys that you should know as well. Okay, they might ask you one or two of these, but it's important because these are shortcut keys that we use every day. We want to copy paste information, select everything. These are just the the basics of our shortcut keys that we use on a regular basis. All right, and then just converting between file types. This is very important. When we have a document, we can go file, save as, and then at the bottom we have this section that says save as type. So I can take my Word document, type everything out, be done with it, save it as a Word document, but then I can also go in and save it as a different type of Word document, right? A different version. I can save it as a PDF document. Okay, so I have these options, but it allows me, and why would I do that? It allows me to be able to take the document, put it in a different format to send it to someone who maybe only has that version. So, for example, I might have Office 2019 and someone has like Office 2010. Now, my 2019 version is not going to work on there. So, I need to save it as an older type, like the 97 2003, and then I can send it to him and it will work. Okay. So that's the important bit over there. Let me see. I think that should be fine. Shame I don't want to kill you guys on the first session. Just let me know in the comments. Do you want me to continue with one last module 1.5, or shall we pick up tomorrow evening with 1.5? You let me know. Let me know, guys. Do you want me to continue with and just finish off module 1.5 for this evening? Or do you want me to pick it up tomorrow evening? Just let me know in the comments. Tomorrow? No problem. No problem. Okay, so if nobody else is going to say anything there, then we will wrap it up there for tonight. So, folks, thank you very much for joining me. Don't forget to spread the word. Let others come and join as well, because I know a lot of you are writing this week. So we're going to continue with 1.5 tomorrow evening, and then continue on our journey to preparing for our CAT theory paper. Okay, thank you so much for joining me this evening, and I will see you all tomorrow.